but allow yourself to know that you deserve love, you deserve to be valued, even to exist in the human form here in this heaven or in this earthly plane. You have a certain preciousness about your soul. If you could understand the vastness of the universe, and we at Earth School are considered like the Harvard or the Yale of all the schools, one of the hardest. So for us to even exist and be miserably failing, we are still precious.
Today, I'd like to welcome back to the show, Vinney Todd Tolman. Vinney, it's such a pleasure to have you back today. How is life treating you?
It is awesome, Christina. And, here speaking with you makes it even better. So it's great to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here. I have so many things to pick your brain about today. And I know we've already done a full episode talking about your near-death experience where we explored the 10 things that you learned from your guide. And so today we're going to take a little bit of a different spin. We're going to talk about those 10 things more in detail and apply them to some of the things that are going on in the world, specifically in our country that might
Yeah.
be causing some stuff to surface for, I know for me and probably for others out there too. So I guess maybe to start it off, why don't we do like a super summarized Reader's Digest version of your NDE and then get into the 10 things that you learned?
All right. Well, the short version is I was found dead in a bathroom, in a public bathroom. I was put in a body bag. I was pronounced dead too. I was put in a body bag, and about 45 minutes after being pronounced dead, I was revived by a rookie medic who broke protocol and felt like he should try. And he did try. He got my heart to come back. I was still brain dead for 3 days. And for those 3 days, I was experiencing life and existence in the real existence. So, not what we call the real world, because the real world to us is not real. This world is not the real one. That world there is the real one. That's the real existence. So I got to have 3 days there, and I learned quite a bit in that process. And that's what the 10 principles is, and that's what my story is.
Yes. I like how you said that you spent 3 days in the real world because
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that with some recent events and the election coming up and women's rights being taken away, it's really hard for me to be in this world sometimes. And I reach for seeing it as an illusion, but it's very, very real to me. And so I'd love to talk about the real world and the 10 principles whenever you're ready.
Well, awesome. Well, first off, and this is going trigger warning. If politics really upsets you, that means that you've been played a fool,
Mm.
that you've been a pawn in someone else's hands. We have to understand that, with the world, every country, it's either, with the United States, we have Democrat, Republican, we have liberal, conservative. In Canada or in other countries, you have different terminology, but it's essentially the same thing. Keep them divided so that they don't see us doing what they're doing.
Right.
And what we have to do is we have to understand when we take a perfect example is this is talked about by some famous people in the past. If you take red ants and black ants and you put them in the same colony, like the same little ant farm, they will completely coexist, no problem whatsoever. They build separate communities, separate little ant farm or ant holes and dens and whatever. They actually dig these separate compartments for each of their communities. And as long as there's food for both, they never mess with each other. So as long as there's resources for both, they never mess with each other. But if you stop feeding them, they will start attacking each other. Okay. So if resources get held back, they attack each other. But here's what's weird. You can keep them full of resources, but if you go and shake the ant farm, you shake the actual tank, they will attack each other, perceiving that the other is the threat that's shaking their world. So don't, and the reason I bring this up is don't ask yourself who's the red ant, who's the black ant. Ask yourself, who in the hell is shaking the ant farm? That's what matters. So when you get real upset about this political party or this leader, I'm sorry that you've been played a pawn, but you have. No one can take your hope, and no one can take your beliefs. No one. Only you can give those up. And if politics is removing happiness from you, understand that you're giving up your happiness for politics. Don't do it. I promise you the world is not going to end no matter what leader is in charge. Yeah, there's some bad ones. There's hardly any good ones. I would say 10 amount to, we have a greater chance of a unicorn arriving than having a good, honest leader. Unfortunately, there's no such thing in the modern day. So don't be played a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Don't get your emotions all riled up over politics or religion or any of these things because you're being played upon.
I love that perspective. And I noticed that as I'm pretty good about keeping the things that I'm exposed to at, a minimum or at bay. But what I think gets to my heart the most is the amount of division that I see. And the way that you described the ants is just fascinating, that when they're fully resourced, they will coexist in harmony. And when
they'll
they're
never
not,
attack each other. Even if they run out of space, they will never attack each other.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love that perspective. I know that it just gave me a real sense of perspective on all of the issues, really, when you said, if they get shaken up, they'll attack each other as the perceived threat, but really there's someone else that's the perceived threat.
And it's like you mentioned in the beginning about reproductive rights, and someone else may be worried about freedom of speech. Someone else may be worried about their gun rights or election security and all these other things. All of those things are Chicken Little running around trying to freak people out and saying the sky is falling. Right. Go to any protest in the world, and majority of the people protesting don't even understand the information behind why the protest is there. Right. They are the ants that are attacking because they see other ants attacking. Mm-hmm. They have no idea the actual information that's behind whatever this so-called protest is. So I see it time and time again, and I hate that I see that, but at the same time, I understand that it's part of our process of realizing that we can be a slave to truth, or we can be a slave to fiction. And in the news, most of the time you're getting a lot of fiction, unfortunately. Yep. Because there is a little tiny nugget of truth, but they need to spin it into a way that it shakes your ant farm and gets you so upset, either pro or anti, it doesn't matter. And it's no difference. You go to a football or a soccer game, you get these two rivaling teams. They will fight each other, even sometimes kill each other, but yet they're the very same thing. They're a passionate fan for the sport that they follow, but because they're wearing a different jersey or they like a different team, they're going to hurt each other. Again, Who's shaking the ant farm? That's the real question. Don't let your ant farm be shaken. Yeah.
And fighting, when you said the protests are, they're just, a lot of people don't even understand the fight that they're fighting. Just when you said fighting, it was like, my heart just wants everyone to get along.
Yep.
Fighting is not the answer. Love is the answer. And I do believe that there is a world where we can all coexist in harmony. So
Well,
I'd
it's
love.
weird. If you look back at every single election cycle in the United States, there's protests.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, why do they take 3 years off in between? That's weird. So every 3 years, hardly any protests. All of a sudden, it's election year, time to protest. And one year it's this race. One year it's um, the police are abusive. The next race, it's this religion. Now it's anti this religion. Now it's pro this religion. Now it's freedom of religion. And it's like all these times there's all these protests.
Mhm.
And once you understand energy, the way that I understand it from my experience, you can't be anti anything and get more positive. You can't.
Right.
It's impossible. If you're anti theft, you're going to get more theft. If you're pro integrity, you'll get more integrity and less theft. But you have to choose something to be proactive, and promoting and supporting positive actions, behaviors, and beliefs. Take any topic that gets you really passionate, and in about 5 minutes off camera, I could tell you the institution or the energy behind that topic. On camera, I don't like doing that because it freaks people out.
Yeah.
Because truth does hurt, and it really freaks people out when they realize their whole life they've been in an ant farm that gets shaken every 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
And they were one of the ants that kept biting and attacking themselves.
Yeah.
And we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. And I would argue, and not argue, I would plant into the conscious space with this video that we're moving into a new phase where people are waking up left and right from the ant farm. And not just that, they're realizing that the ant farm never had a lid on it. We can crawl our rear ends out of there and see the light of true freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from having a handler or a puppeteer puppet us into some position of compromised integrity, because that's what all of that does. It compromises who we are because it appeals to the lowest element of who we are. What's the lowest element of humanity? Violence, hate, and anger. All of those stem from fear.
Yeah.
Fear towards the future is fear. Fear towards the past is anger, but it's the same energy, both directions. It's the lowest possible energy for us to have. Now we have built into us a survival mechanism to react to fear by our heart going to a higher rate, our adrenaline running, and they use that on purpose.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
mean it. Government, businesses, sports teams, all rivalries, all sorts of ways it happens to us. We don't have to be in the ant farm anymore. Just
Yeah.
climb out.
Yeah. I'm trying to climb out. And I love how you explained from an energetic point of view. It's like what came up really strong was whatever you persist or whatever you resist persists. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're anti anything, we're going to get more of that. And then you also mentioned that, we're waking up to a new way of being, which is the thread that has carried me through when I'm riled, right? When I'm triggered and I'm in that fear, I know that it's up for my healing. Like I know I'm being triggered for a reason. And what I do see in all of this too, outside of my own triggers, is that there is a new way and we are waking up to it and we're being triggered for a reason.
Hmm. Take women's reproductive rights in the United States. It's a big deal. We have the world splitting right down the middle. You're either this or you're that. We don't need to use the terms. But on one end of the argument, there is the argument that it's the right to kill babies. On the other end of the argument, it's the right to choose. Well, what the heck happened with educating someone, letting them know what it actually is that they may do, let them see one, and then if they're still okay doing it, let them have that right. Right? But we don't. And in fact, we do the opposite. If someone chooses or opts in, they get no education, they get no counseling after the fact. And so it's a system that gobbles up ants and spits them out all damaged and broken.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when we let the attacking and biting, we hurt from both directions. We do.
And I've been openly speaking about how it's not really about the policies or the laws around abortion or reproduction, or even, let's take school shootings and the topic of our rights to bear arms or our rights to have guns, or restricting those. There's so much more that can be done when we focus on each person.
Mm-hmm.
Someone
If
who
we
is
if we
going to a
heal,
school
yeah,
and opening fire is not someone who is feeling loved.
no, and the gun didn't pull the trigger. A broken kid who grew into an adult pulled that trigger,
Yes.
both male and female. If we start helping these kids and stop breaking them, then they don't feel so out of sorts from society. But there's a scary thing going on right now. There's a vast majority of the American public is extremely unhappy with their life. Extremely. They go to the grocery store. What used to be a shopping cart full of food was $100 or $80. It's now $360, like 4 times as much. Other costs have gone up substantially. So they're getting to the end of the month and they're looking at their bank account. And they're like, I'm not making a difference anymore. They used to see their bank accounts grow little bit by little bit each month. Now they're seeing them shrink even just to survive. This puts people in a very, very dark mindset, and they start asking themselves, why am I even doing what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. And if we let someone shake that person's ant farm, how likely are they to go and hurt someone else and attack someone else? Very likely. Right. Yeah. Those are the people that are lining up for protests, because most of them don't even believe in what is being protested. They just need a place, a channel, a venue to let that anger out of them, let that frustration out of them. So we're coming into a new world where there's a large chunk of us that are starting to wake up. We're realizing that life is much more than what we're seeing on the surface of our day, and that we're meant for much more than what we're actually doing. And we're unhappy about that because we don't know how to change it. We're sitting there and like, if I keep doing this another year, I'm going to go crazy. You know how many times I've heard that this year? I would say close to 1,000 times. And that's just people I know.
Yeah.
So yes, it's time for change, but not because some government leader told us.
Right.
Not because the ballot box changed or a president changed. It's time for change in here and in the holiest place on earth, our temples, right here. Not one temple, 2 temples. That's how holy this is. We have 2 temples right here. That's where we need to do some repairing. That's where we need to find what brings us passion, good passion, not anger or fear passion, but motivational passion. And that's a passion that gets to stay. Fear or anger passion only lasts for a fleeting moment until the moment passes and then it's gone. And it's very odd how we quickly forget that. Whereas positive motivational passion is considered a peak experience for the body, for the physiology, and it lasts much longer, for months and months. Some people it lasts for years, but it's important that we have those peak experiences on a regular basis. And if we do, we find fulfillment and happiness. In the old days, our parents and our ancestors used to go to church for that. But even the churches aren't bringing those solutions anymore. Because we've tried. We go there and we're like, we don't fit in.
Right.
And this isn't for me. They want to exclude people, but that's not true. That's just our perception. That's our perception of what churches are. And why? Because that's what was broadcast to us by the ant farm shakers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the two temples and how, for the longest time, for 12 plus years, it's been when I have that, heat, we'll call it the passion motivated by fear, right? That heat, it's a result of something in my mind. And that's the good news, because that can be changed, that can be shifted, that can be, healed and atoned for in the way the Course in Miracles says. And so, yes, I love all of this, and I love how you described the passion that is motivating, like from spirit or from our hearts, or however you want to put that, because there are times where the things externally can trigger so deeply that it feels like passion.
Yeah.
But it's fear, and it's anger, and it's rage, and it's hate, and it's not. And there is a difference, and they feel energetically completely different. And you can feel one filling you up from the inside out, and you can feel the other that has more of a, I don't know if I would say draining, but it's like, it's just not as fulfilling.
Well, part of the work that I do is I help people figure out why they trigger on something. Okay. I'll give you a perfect example. When I actually love when I see something that really bothers me, because if it does, I know there's something from my past, likely from the behavior that I exhibited as a younger person, that I did exactly what's bothering me in front of me now. And so a trigger would be a reminder, hey, you haven't forgiven your ignorant self of being ignorant at an earlier part of your life. So I can dive in, do what's called shadow work or trauma work. I can release my judgment of myself from the past. And from that day forward, those people can do whatever they want around me. I have no problem. No trigger, no problem whatsoever. I had a gal that was triggering big time about women's reproductive health. Okay. In working with her, I am all about everyone has their option to be whoever they are. I'm never going to try to influence them one direction or another. What I do want to help them do is clear out their closets, clear out the trauma that is triggering them on certain things. And come to find out, she had tried to have kids and couldn't have kids. And so anything to do with reproduction, it would trigger her, both positive, negative, just anything. And, so we dove into allowing herself to feel the feelings she was trying to avoid all along. And we went in and we grabbed those feelings and we hugged them. We held them for a moment, let her feel them, and then we released them. And I tested her right after. I said, hey, let's pull up this ad for the enemy camp. Okay. Let's pull it up and watch it. Sure enough, she got to the end of the ad and she was weeping because she had never been able to watch one of those and ever actually get any message from it other than that's the enemy. I need my ant farm shaking, she's just rising to the enemy. And now she realizes that people are people. There's going to be people pro everything. There's going to be people anti everything. No one's perfect. That's why we're here. We're trying to figure it out. It's Earth School. That's what we're here to do, is learn, not perfect it.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny, you look at some of the highest paid professions in the modern world, and it's going to be medicine and law, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but what do they say about those professionals? Do they say perform medicine or perform law? They say practice medicine or practice law. And so even some of the highest paid jobs out there or careers out there, they're still just practicing.
Yeah.
We all are. We're trying to do better every day, as long as our head's in the game. So we have to get our head in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I always, when I work with clients, I try to reiterate as much as I can. When I give assignments and they don't do the assignments, I tell them it's a spiritual practice because we have to practice it, and we're never going to reach perfection, or we've already reached perfection, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. I love it. And allowing yourself not to have perfection as the goal, it allows you to have other goals with the practice of certain behaviors, habits, and patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to actually achieve those goals too, when perfection is not the target anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Long lesson that I've been learning. Perfection is not the goal.
Oh, yeah. A lot of us perfectionists are that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is true though. Once I saw that I was striving for perfection, that is where the light opened, where it was like, oh, I don't have to be perfect. That's actually, not going to happen, or it's not, doesn't mean I'm more worthy if I'm perfect than, because that's really what the motivator was that I had to be perfect in order to be loved. That was the belief that was driving it. And so once I learned that that's really not a thing, that I'm
Well,
lovable
what's sad
inherently as
is,
I am.
yeah, when you climb that conditional love ladder, guess what? There's no top.
No.
You see it with successful achievers. They never allow themselves to plateau or get to the top. It's like they're always in constant fight to climb, climb, climb. It happens when people are addicted to cosmetic surgery. They think, oh, I'll just do this little, fix on my lips and then I'm going to be it. That's it. They get it done, and now all they notice is their nose. They get their nose done. Now all they notice is their ears. It's like it's a nonstop.
Yeah.
And what I always like to tell people is happiness and value is not something that the outside world can give you. It is something that only you can give you. And think about that for just a minute, because that's really heavy for this world. They have to understand that we're looking outside ourselves to the next job, the next income, the next flipped property, or the next project that we're going to take on, or the next award, the next competition, the next race. We keep telling ourselves that's when we're going to receive love, happiness, or value. But all along, we didn't realize that we already had that. We just didn't allow ourselves to have it.
Yeah.
We have to really allow ourselves to feel it and have it. And a big part of that is resist and abandon what our parents taught us about that. Because they were raised in the same broken system of finding your happiness outside you. You're never going to find happiness outside you, ever.
Never.
I promise you a real, exactly.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't find your happiness in the current relationship, don't you dare think a new relationship's going to fix it.
Right.
Just not. Find your happiness now. And guess what? You're going to love the relationship you're in most times. There's a few of you might wake up and be like, oh, I love me. I deserve better than this, and move on to something else, right? But allow yourself to know that you deserve love. You deserve to be valued. Even to exist in the human form here in this heaven or in this earthly plane, you have a certain preciousness about your soul. If you could understand the vastness of the universe, and we at Earth School are considered like the Harvard or the Yale of all the schools, one of the hardest. So for us to even exist and be miserably failing, we are still precious, extremely precious to the universe. That allows us to have a little bit of a foundation to build on, to allow us ourselves to feel valuable and to feel that we can have love and feel love and be loved by ourselves first. Because if we can't love ourselves, no one else will be able to love us healthily. Yeah.
I had a mentor say, and I say this all the time now, and I don't want to mess it up, but no one can love yourself better than you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it time and time again when someone is actually loving them, but they reject it, resist it, brush it off, and they give it no place to land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when real unconditional love is around them.
Yeah.
So that is something we have to allow inwardly before we can receive anything outwardly there. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love how you said that, if we're not happy on the inside, like nothing externally will make us happy. And so it made me think of, in the past year or two, I've wanted to, move out of this country. It's like, well, if I can't find peace in this country, I won't find peace in another country.
Nope. You will jump from out of the frying pan into the fire.
Right.
It will only get worse, I promise you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here's what I always do is whenever someone says, well, once I, move to Canada, I'll be happy. Or I move to go, I go get the new promotion, then I'll be happy. My follow-up question is, what's preventing you from being happy now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start working.
Yeah.
Is allowing them to find their happiness now. Because I've seen people in the middle of horrible places. I've been all over the world and I have seen beautiful things and horrible things. And I'm telling you, some people in the most horrible places are the happiest people I've ever known. I met a man who pedals a pedal taxi all day long. He was in his 60s, late 60s. He looked like he was 80. So happy, extremely happy. And he lived off of 15 cents a day. He'd work all day long for 15 cents. And that was just enough to buy a little food, buy a little drink, and rent a space to sleep at night. And when I say space, I mean literally like a legit little space to sleep for 6 hours. Like he only had it rented for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So he could rest and not feel like someone's gonna like get him or something. But here he is in a third world country, and he's happier than many of the billionaires that I work with.
Now, I'm curious, something's popping up really strong. And I know we said we were going to talk about the 10 principles, but if we don't get to those, I'm totally fine with that because, as you were explaining this man who just pedaled all day and made 15 cents and was happy, I kept hearing the word free.
Mm-hmm.
And, my, instinct to want to flee to another country is I'm happy in my life with my kids, but there's this feeling that I have sometimes where I don't feel free. And so I'd love to hear what you have to say about freedom.
So what's funny is anytime you don't feel free, that doesn't mean that you're not free. It means that you're perceiving that you're not free. It's only your perception. And again, it goes back to who's shaking your ant farm.
Mhm.
I have friends that after every election, they're always saying, it doesn't matter which side's winning. Every single time, they're like, I'm moving out of the United States. 2 weeks into the new world that they still haven't moved, by the way,
Right.
I ask them, I go, can you still do what you want to do? Yeah. So why were you so worried?
Yeah.
I do believe you should stand for your ethics and your values, but don't do it because others are teaching you to do it. Do it because you do your own research. Do your own research. Act as if no one has taught you anything. I take someone who's very anti this president or very anti this president,
Mhm.
and in about 5 minutes, I can get them completely widened on their horizon to understand that they had no idea. They had always accepted whatever this news agency or this political party had told them about that person. And it's funny, I always ask people, what kind of car do you drive? So let's do that with you. What kind of car do you drive? What brand car do you drive?
A Hyundai Tucson.
Okay, so if you drive a Hyundai, did you go over to Ford to learn about it?
No.
Well, how would you know if it's good or not if all you did was go to Hyundai, right?
Right.
That's what politics is.
Yeah.
Whenever someone's very strong about one political thing, I will say, okay, just let's play devil's advocate. Why don't you switch sides and let's debate this? I'll stand where you would be. And in like 2 or 3 minutes, all of a sudden their mind is changing, it's opening up. And I'm not doing this to shift anybody's political avenue. All I want them to do is wake up and don't be someone else's pawn. Live your own life.
Mhm.
Don't allow others to make choices for you. Because anytime you're afraid and you allow that fear to influence you, you are being played a patsy by someone else, by a manipulator.
Yeah, I love how you said it's just our perception of not being free. And it's why I said, like, I'm happy in my life, like in my daily life. And I actually don't. I've checked this out too. I don't feel restricted with my kids or just in my whatever I'm doing with my podcast, or I'm going on a trip this weekend, I don't feel restricted. And I've checked into that. Like, well, then why don't I feel free? Because what's happening in the concepts of the laws or the policies or the United States and the Constitution or whatever, it's like I am my own sovereign being and I do make my own
Mm-hmm.
choices.
We think we have the perception of being a
Right.
sovereign being, but if we were born in the United States and we were given a birth certificate, we are not a sovereign being, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
and those birth certificates represent a certain value to the world and to the slave masters that run the Western world. They definitely do. And from the second you're born, there's actually dollar amounts attached to how much in taxes you will provide by the end of your life, on average, how much financing you'll do in an average life. Those are numbers that are traded and talked about at the highest levels. And so those are the puppeteers. Those are the ones playing chess.
Mhm.
We just happen to be the pawns, and we don't need to be.
Right.
They can make a move. They can say pawn to c7 or whatever, right? And we don't have to move.
Right.
We can do that's where real freedom is to do what you want to do and not be manipulated by that system. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a whole like other
Big ball
rabbit
of
hole
wax.
that
Yeah.
I've gone
Big
down.
ball of wax. Yep.
Yeah. Where our birth certificates and what they mean and the puppet master.
It's funny because since the year 2000, hackers have been trading people's identities. Legitimately, they have. They have been, not that that's legitimate. I'm saying that they literally do this.
Yeah.
Hackers will trade social security numbers, birth dates, names, addresses, credit card numbers. They trade them back and forth like a commodity. And somehow that's evil and bad. And I agree, it is. It's not good. But yet that's what governments have been doing for a long time.
Right.
A really long time. And who else has been doing that? Banks.
Yeah.
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 So, again, I feel that I can wake up every day and choose to find happiness, freedom, and value, whether I wake up in Las Vegas, where I live, or I could wake up in Beijing, China, and find that. I could wake up in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and find that. I could wake up in Saigon, Vietnam, or Ho Chi Minh City and find that. I could, wake up in almost any actually any country. I can wake up and find that. Now, I might have to work a little harder
Right.
for one or all three of those. But I love the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This gentleman, amazing man, grew up essentially, not grew up, but spent a few years in a concentration camp in World War II Germany. And what he realized is perfectly healthy people were dying all the time, but unhealthy people were living and surviving. And he pragmatically wanted to understand, how is it this person who's always sick stays alive, but this person who came into the camp perfectly healthy only lasts a week or two? And what he found, it was their mind. It was always their mind. And the ones that would look for the silver linings, even on the darkest clouds, they survived. But the ones who couldn't see a silver lining on any of the clouds, and all they saw were the dark storms of life, they were the ones that gave away their hope. And I'm telling you, if the human spirit can survive concentration camps by being positive, we sure as heck can survive modern messed up America, or modern messed up wherever you live, and be just fine. It's all about the perspective. It's all about the hope and the optimism. Find your silver linings. And if you can't find them, imagine you can't have anything from your normal life. Not one more day. All of a sudden, you'll start finding some silver linings. Like, imagine your heart will not beat anymore for you. Imagine you don't have legs anymore. And there's a guy out there like, hey, I don't have any legs. But so for him, imagine you don't have any hands. Like, imagine you're missing something you take for granted every single day. And with every step, every heartbeat, thank whatever deity works for you, or thank the universe if you don't believe in deities. Thank life force itself for having what you do. And what will happen is your life will slowly transform into an abundant life where you feel like you are empowered no matter where you are living, no matter who's president. Yeah.
Gratitude, for sure. And I'm curious if, and I'm not sure how to ask this because it's still like forming in my mind, but just everything you just said. And then also, it's like, I guess my question is, what advice would you have for people in this world right now? Like 2024, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have YouTube with all these podcasts that have great information.
Yeah.
Conscious podcasts, but we have so much information coming at us, sometimes even not from real sources that are credible. Like, there's a lot of fake news too. So in this time, as we move into elections and it gets fired up even more and we're inundated with content and information, how would you suggest we navigate through
So
this time?
there is a strategic campaign behind getting us addicted and miserable in our technology. Perfect example. I used to work in Hollywood and TV. I have a connection through prop money, which is fake dollars. When you get them up close, it's easy to tell. But for TikTok videos and Instagram videos, you'd have no idea that stacks and stacks and stacks and pallets of this cash is all fake. Okay. But by design, it's fake. It's fake for the movies. At a quick glance, you would not know. But as soon as you look up, it says copy or fake or movie money or prop money on the prints. Okay. You have countless accounts in the United States, in Russia, in Europe, of these accounts going around and have just randomly handing out stacks, like 10, 20, $30,000 stacks just to random strangers that get surprised and, oh, you changed my life. Thank you so much. Okay. Why would someone do that? Is that so that while you're working your 9 to 5 and it's really hard to scrape together $1,000? Does that make you a little bit more miserable that day? Definitely. Okay. Then there's other accounts that are legitimate, like here's $100. I know you're homeless. You know, those ones, those are real. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. There's also a fake private jet here in Vegas. It's a private jet. You rent it and you can go shoot your TikToks and your videos, and it looks like you're on a private jet because it's a decommissioned jet. They make it look like stuff's, air's moving on the outside of the windows. It's all a set. That set is booked out 12 to 18 months in advance. You can't tell me that the world is real. Like, social media has not allowed us to see reality. I have also seen people doing TikToks and videos of flashing the fancy car they have, and that has the little sticker from the rental agency on the keychain that they're flashing around. So it's like, wake up, everybody. Don't think that you should believe any of what you're watching. And in fact, the best recommendation I can make is this: take your technology, put it home, put it down, leave it at home, and go spend a few hours away from your slave master. Yeah. See how you feel. And after you get a little bit more courage, do 4 hours, 6 hours. Go buy one of those prepaid flip phones with loaded with minutes and put that on you for emergencies only. Mm-hmm. And go live a little. Leave the technology home. Now, slave masters are going to hate that I just said that. Mm-hmm. Because I'm telling you, we are plugged in to a matrix through our entertainment. Everything is marketed to us by design. And it's extremely intelligent, and it's only getting more intelligent with AI help. And I want you to know that if you don't start mastering technology now, or your relationship with it, the technology will master you if it hasn't already. Spend 1 day away from your phone and tell me you're not addicted. If you can do 1 day and you don't think about your phone more than maybe 2 times, I would say you're not addicted. I would also say that around 99.99999% of the Western world could not do that, outside of someone running a homestead or a farm. Because homesteads and farms, there's no time to sit there and play games. You've got work to do, right? And that's one of the reasons why people are doing that in droves. Mm-hmm. They'd rather go live and thrive than be miserable thinking that people are randomly getting free stacks of money just for being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's crazy when you really think about the fabrication that is on all of the social media sites and how it is actually built for entertainment and it's not real. And when you said, you know, put your phone down, it's like 99.9% of us, I don't think we could do it without thinking about, when you said think about your phone twice, I was like, wow, that's a lot. Like even just needing to be in touch with my kids or, you know, or wanting to show what I'm up to. It's like we are so plugged in to these devices. And you know, when I am out on a hike or out for a run, I'm not exposed and I'm not upset about anything because I'm just living and being. And so, yes, be very, very intentional about what you pay attention to and how much time you spend plugged in.
Well, you'd be surprised, in every single major city, there is deaths and accidents every day of people stepping into manholes, walking into water fountains. And in fact, some cities are creating requirements that if there is an open, gaping hole right where your eyes can see it, but a random person addicted to their phone is staring at their phone as they fall into it, you have to create some type of structure around it. And that includes fountains, that includes all sorts of steps and everything. You know, we're not meant for this. Our soul volunteered to come into a physical body to learn to grow and to learn how to create and build relationships. That's why we're here. Now, in a way, technology can help us with that, but it also can replace that completely.
Mhm.
I read about a gal that she had a huge following on Instagram, and they took her Instagram away because she had a famous name. Who someone else famous had the fame name. She had a name exact same as someone else who was famous. She ended up unaliving herself because she thought she lost her world. I promise you, what you're seeing on that phone is not real.
Yeah.
It's part of the illusion of existence. Take a few deep breaths, connect to the you inverse, and you'll connect to the universe. Yeah.
Thank you. I know we're just at about time, and I just am soaking in everything that you're saying. So I'm curious if there's anything else that you want to offer to the audience before we.
Yes, unequivocally, we are meant for more than this. We're meant for more than going to a 9 to 5. We're meant for building lives, building communities, building relationships, creating things, writing, art, sculpture, anything, even crafts. Like, create something, get a hobby, start creating, and you'll notice that your happiness factor goes up exponentially if you can create. So allow yourself to create and know that we're meant for greater things. So go out and make a short list of what makes you passionate, what brings inspiration into your life, and start getting yourself a regular dose of that, more than a dose of your technology. A little bit less FaceTime with the technology, a lot more alive time with life. And you will feel so much happier right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Vinney, this has been such an amazing conversation. So inspiring and soothing at the same time. I'm not really sure how else to describe this, but I just know that I have benefited so much from listening to you today. And if even just one other person out there gets even a sliver of what I've gotten from this conversation with you, that will make me so happy and so pleased because it's just been awesome. So thank you so much for
Yeah. Thank
sharing
you.
your heart and your experience and your wisdom with the world. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate you. And thank you for being one of those light workers, one of those people out there creating positive content, and there's no corporation or hidden agenda behind our content. So we get to have the true freedom of allowing ourselves to be inspired and do what we feel inspired to do. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing, and keep up the fight. I know it's not easy, especially
Right.
with kids and juggling the schedules and all of that. So I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you. I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.